So the next time you're listening to somebody who you really admire, or somebody you come across someone who you're like, yeah, them, their ideas, they've got it, that's what I want to get to. That's what I want to be. You know, I want to embody these awesome qualities that they have. See what they're reading. Better than food, man. Hey y'all, how you doing? All right, check this out. Gonna draw a name. Just like that. Steven is going to get the first ever piece of Better Than Food merch, which I am thrilled to say is now here. The Better Than Food coffee mug, which is blown the hell out. Check that out. Well, there's a big giant glare in the middle of it, but you know, you get the idea. I commissioned my dear old friend Sky Fusel Casey to create this for me, and he did a fantastic job. We were working this kind of woodblock print thing. As you can see, that's me after reading too many books. Of course, starving to death because they are better than food. If you'd like to get your hands on one of these for the holiday season, please head down to the description box below, and I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching the show. So today, instead of books and coffee, I'm sending off one of these awesome mugs to Steven. Thank you so much for the support, Steven. If you'd like to get in on the lottery, where I normally do books and coffee, but I'm going to be adding merch to that lottery as well, you can head over to patreon.com/books are better than food and donate $5 or more per video. And if you do so, I will put your name in that mason jar, and I sincerely appreciate it. Thanks so much to everybody who has supported the show already. And if you get your stuff and you have an Instagram account, I'd love it if you'd hit me up on there and just tag me or something, take a photo, do something cool. You know. Thank you, everybody who liked the show on Facebook. I reached my goal of 1,000 likes on Facebook, and a couple of you posted on your pages, hey, this guy's looking, you know, this guy's awesome, he needs some likes, you should help him out. And I hope you know how much it means to me, and I really appreciate it, so thank you very much. Yeah, nice little milestone reached for the year, so that's good. That's great. So today I just want to discuss something that at first I didn't think was particularly interesting because I just didn't think I had an interesting answer, but the more I thought on it, the more compelling it became. There was a comment left on one of my recent videos, somebody saying, you know, well, you know, we watch your videos to get book recommendations, you know, but where do you get your books? And I was like, oh, well, you know, that's not very interesting. But then I thought about it for a little bit, and this comment stuck with me. You know, that question stuck with me because it goes into a whole bunch of other stuff. Because the answer isn't as obvious as I thought, and it may be very helpful to some of you. For, you know, just food for thought, right? Just new avenues to explore, to find books, and new ways to be social, and new ways to kind of engage with your community. And I mean, that sounds really ridiculous and kind of, but new ways to meet people, right? New ways to engage with the world is really what it is. And you know, it could be that the younger folks who are still getting, you know, into literature or into challenging books might find this more useful than the folks who are like, you know, in their 50s or 60s and they've just been around and they know what they like, they know where to find it, and they don't need me telling them about it. Hey, I get that. You know, everybody's got their modus operandi, including me. But you know, if you're looking to get inspired to find some great books and have an interesting life in general in the process, then listen, check this out. So the first one is Complete and Total Strangers. I love doing this. I'm not the most gregarious or outgoing person. You know, I mean, I read books and I talk about them on YouTube in front of a camera and there's nobody around. I'm not exactly a serious extrovert, although I am a little more extroverted than I anticipated, as I realize as I grow up. But Complete and Total Strangers. I love doing this. I love going on the street and see somebody reading a book. Cover looks kind of interesting. Man or woman, doesn't matter. Have some courage. You go up and you just ask like, hey, how is that? Or, you know, what you got going? Or is it any good? Should I read it? And Of course the reactions vary, but it's all dependent on the book. And of course, that's a great opener just to talk to somebody and potentially make a friend, meet somebody that you enjoy speaking with, meet somebody who you're going to connect with on some level. It doesn't work all the time, of course, but it's a great method for just meeting people, man. I mean, using myself as an example, people love to talk about things that they love, or things that have inspired them or had a really positive effect on their life, or a really negative effect on their life. They're like, you just walk up and you ask them, hey, is that any good? And they'll say, no, I've wasted the last 3 months of my life and I'm getting carpal tunnel from the footnotes, turning the page, Or they may say, yes, this book has literally changed my molecular structure and it's incredible. You have to read it right now. Then so many walls are broken down right there when you see what somebody's passionate about, meeting them any other way, you may have had to work up to for such a long time, but with things like this, it's kind of like a shortcut into somebody's soul, if you want to call it that. It's like, yes, this book is literally me. Like, this book is my life, right? That's how important books are to people. So take that into consideration. And you can share the books that you love and vice versa. And so, it'll just, those conversations, there are people really love to discuss books. With complete strangers, really, and this could be in like cafes, it could be in bars, it could be in like, colleges or schools for some of you, I know your students, or, anywhere. And if you're shy, whatever, work up to it. It's okay. It's like somebody comes up to me on the street and asks me what I'm reading and if it's any good. That was like the entire basis for this whole thing. Of course I'm gonna just go off and start telling them about how much I love it, because it's fun. It's fun, and you I don't know. It's a great way to meet people and get recommendations for great books, So the next one would be friends and family, of course. That seems fairly obvious, but I think that is a great way to get to know your family better. I grew up in a household with stuff like Hunter S. Thompson on the shelf, and I would look at these covers and just be completely baffled looking at them when I was a kid. But then, of course, it makes total sense as I get older and older, and I see how my taste reflects my family's. And maybe not all of you have parents who love books, but you may have, aunts or cousins or uncles or, friends of family. And maybe there are some members of your family who you really have nothing else in common with, but you know that they read. Maybe you actually have some common ground. Maybe you have more common ground than you thought. That can always be really interesting, maybe politically, like more liberal, you're more liberal and they're more conservative, but you both like Faulkner or you both like Hemingway or something like that, I think that's definitely worth exploring. And friends, it goes without saying, of course, like that's, a lot of people just bond over the kinds of books that they like. But maybe there are some friends you have who you highly respect and who read, but you didn't ever ask them what their favorite books were, their absolute top 3 or top 5 books. Again, it's sort of a window into their soul. It's sort of like really, it's very intimate. So it's cool. You ought to try it. And on social media, you can even post on Facebook, be like, guys, I'm looking for something to read. I need something to read and I need it to be profound and just to completely break me and then rebuild me or whatever. I don't know. Post it. Ask people, what are your absolute favorite books? People love to recommend stuff. Again, friends and family. Independent bookstore employees. I love this one because there are folks working in a lot of independent bookstores, maybe not the big chain bookstores, but the independent ones, certainly Powell's for sure. There are people working there that live to tell you about awesome books, to recommend awesome books. They have this encyclopedic, extensive knowledge, and are it would seem very obvious, but for so long I went to Powell's, for example, not talking to any of them and not really asking them for a recommendation, just sort of staring at the covers like everybody does and just oh yeah, and choosing books based on their covers. But then when I started talking to the employees there, after I started going there enough, man, they knew what to get. They knew exactly where to go, because they've read it all, right? And example, in Los Angeles, I went to Stories, Books, and Cafe, and I saw Story of the Eye was on display one day, and I said, oh, okay, well, let me try this. Here's an experiment. And I just took Story of the Eye and I went right up to the counter. There was this guy working there and he just seemed totally bored, sitting on the computer. And I was like, hey man, I need a recommendation. You know, I need to find something good. And he's like, okay, well, what do you like? And I was like, this. And I held it up and he's like, I'll never forget his reaction. It was so great. He's like, oh yeah, that'll change your life. And then he recommended Michel Houellebecq. I think it was The Elementary Particles, which I still haven't reviewed, and I absolutely should. I love that book. Love it, love it, love it, love it. And he recommended Nick Tosh's In the Hand of Dante, which I haven't reviewed that one either. What the hell is wrong with me? Holy shit, I'm just realizing how far behind I am this year. Ugh. Well, that's good. At least there's a lot of good stuff to come. But he recommended both of those books, phenomenal books. And so those two authors, you know, added to the repertoire, loved them both, and here I sit. So yeah, independent bookstore employees. They're treasures. They're wonderful people. Filmmakers. Man, they love to talk about books that have influenced their work. Particularly, you know, probably more like independent, indie art house directors, you know. Case in point, I mean, here, I'll pull it up right now. Jim Jarmusch, you know, I love his films. You know, since I was a kid, I love Jarmusch's stuff. Dead Man is one of my favorite films, but you know, I had the feeling that somewhere on the internet, in some interview somewhere, there was probably a list of his favorite books. And I was right. I just Googled that, you know? And this kind of goes for any big thinker or any, you know, artist or person that you admire. You know, if they're pretty high profile, relatively high profile, even if they're not, you know, I mean, if they're talking about their art and the things that influence their art, you know, they probably have a list of things that they loved. And if you love what they do, then I would highly suggest you go and see what they love, right? So Jim Jarmusch, perfect example. I mean, there's this whole lengthy paragraph. He just recommends Tristram Shandy by Lawrence Stern, Flaubert, Proust, Balzac, Hamlet, Rimbaud, Blake. He's got everything. I mean, he's got Luc Sante, Mark Twain, Dashiell Hammett, Charles Wilford, Blaise Cendrars, Mayarm, Neruda, Rilke, Bataille. So, ton. And that's not even, there's tons more. I'm just looking at this thing. It's great. So, just check it out, right? Just try that. I think all my favorite filmmakers are deeply influenced by literature. You know, cinema and literature just go hand in hand. So, I mean, musicians too. Musicians love to list the books that inspired the music for their new forthcoming album and discuss like the concepts behind it and so on and so forth. It's just like the filmmakers. It's a great resource for finding out about great literature is interviews with musicians. Particularly rock ones, you know, I mean, I suppose one of the first that comes to mind would be David Bowie because he had like the big reading list, you know, which is being thrown around and posted everywhere. And that's a big example. But, you know, even in smaller bands, you know, you can see, again, everybody loves to talk about books. And check out David Bowie's reading list. But, I mean, it's awesome. It has like Nishima, I think, and Maldoror. Writers, of course, that's my number one go-to personally. I love to read interviews with authors, living or dead, and they love to talk about books that they love. Much more so, it seems, than their own books, which is understandable for me. An interview with oh man, God. An interview with Roberto Bolaño was where I found out about Borges. It was probably where I found out about Marquez and Cortázar and, like, you know, a lot of the Latin American authors. Knausgaard lists a bunch of stuff. I just got a book that he was hyping in one of his interviews. And I mean, Jordan Peterson is constantly talking about all sorts of literature. There's a reading list from him. You know, I mean, all the great authors that you love. I'm sure, you know, if they're alive and they're on social media, they'll probably be talking about it. If they do interviews at all, they'll probably be discussing some books that they really love. And this just goes for people who you admire in general. If you Google so-and-so favorite books, you might be surprised how often you get some really awesome recommendations. You might use this technique all the time naturally and just go to it like I do. I mean, I've always done this. And this would apply for writers and thinkers whom you wouldn't necessarily think of immediately as being very literary. But, for example, Anthony Bourdain just had this awesome interview, and he listed out all of these phenomenal books, these great book recommendations. I think it was with the New York Times or something. And I was just reading it, and I was like, oh man, this is just like treasure right here. He's just talking about, I think he actually mentioned Stoner in that interview. So I was like, okay, all right, great. This was supposed to be, you would typically think that would be an interview about food and him being a chef and blah, 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 and he's written Kitchen Confidential, all that. But no, right? You'd be surprised. I'll post that article in the description box below. You ought to check it out. It's really great. So the next time you're listening to somebody who you really admire, or somebody you come across someone who you're like, yeah, them, their ideas, they've got it. That's what I want to get to. That's what I want to be. I want to embody these awesome qualities that they have. See what they're reading. I'm going to make the brash assumption that anybody worth listening to has probably read some damn good books. So, crucify me. And finally, the number one greatest source of book recommendations that I know of, or I've come across, is you. All y'all in the comments section below. I think that is the number one place to go to get great book recommendations. See what he did there? Yeah, buttering them up. But no, really, if you enjoy the books that I review, then just check the comments section, because that's what everybody talks about. They just talk about all the books I should read next if I enjoyed the one that I'm reviewing. And very, very often I take those recommendations, or I take them from patrons of the show. They are the most well-read people I've ever met in my entire life. And they're phenomenally gracious and generous. The fans that I meet are so much smarter than I am. It sort of shocks me. I'm sort of like, wow, you really you like listening to me? It's like really, like they're cool people from all over the world. It's like, and it's fun. I get to talk. Books really do bring people together. I know this is my third cup of coffee, but it's pour over, so it's extremely caffeinated. I'm just like, but. Yeah, books really bring people together from all over the world. This channel is a testament to that idea. And I know that the most requested books in the comments section are two that I have not reviewed yet and don't plan to, but those being Infinite Jest and Gravity's Rainbow. I haven't read Gravity's Rainbow. I tried. I started. I lost interest really quickly. But, everybody has really been requesting that one. And, well, half the internet, it seems, but just half. Maybe I'll get around to it in 2018. But really, I do stand by that. I think the comments section is wonderful for getting great recommendations. Just scroll, just find a book that you love, find a book review that you love that I've done, and just scroll down, and you should get more than you can handle at any given time. So, great, perfect. All right. And I guess I'll do one more. I do think Goodreads is pretty awesome, because it's so convenient, and you just have like these recommendations it gives you, and you can just add these books. It's kind of addictive. I have so many on there now that every time I go on there, I'm just wasting time basically, because my list is like hundreds and hundreds of books. But, there's communities on there, there's lists, you can find all sorts of great shit on there. It's a wonderful resource, especially if you're just getting into reading challenging books and getting into this whole thing. And it's convenient. It's very convenient. So I appreciate that about Goodreads. I like Goodreads. It's pretty rad. Yeah. So gets my recommendation. Goodreads, better than food. Yeah. Good deal. All right. A very Merry Christmas to all of you. And of course, if you'd like to support the show and you need to get some Christmas gifts last minute, I know they're a little bit on the pricier side for a mug, but I needed something that was print to order and high quality, and I definitely, I found it. If you're going to buy any books off of Amazon, I would really appreciate it if you just follow the link below, and the channel will get a little kickback. It doesn't have to be books too. You can buy anything on there and the channel will get a little kickback, and every little bit helps. Well, I do think it's great to get book recommendations off of the internet. I think you should prioritize book recommendations from real people. You should really get it in person if possible. You should really just get out there and meet people and get recommendations from them and give them recommendations. Talk to people. It's really important, and I mean really. And especially if you're young, you can bond over books. You can create serious bonds over books, and you know, sometimes that'll lead to lifetime friendships, I bet you. So you need to take advantage of that, because we're just becoming increasingly separated. It's not good. So, all right. Great to see everyone. Hope you all survive the holidays. I'll talk to you soon, and have a great night. Take care of yourselves. Stay strong. Ciao.